G'day preppers. Just wanted to talk about broad beans in the garden, and depending on your climate, but here in Australia mostly we can grow broad beans in winter. We can grow quite a few things in winter because we don't get snow or anything like that really. So I just want to talk about growing for as part of your prepping. I think it's a really important aspect. I see some videos where people they prep for like garden seeds, and they'll have a box of all these different packets of seeds in case they've got to shit hit the fan, and they've got to actually grow to survive. Well, I can tell you now that if you think that you're just going to grow your stuff as straight out of the packet without ever actually trying, you're in for a bit of a shock. You're probably going to starve, because it's not just a matter of planting, popping in a seed in the ground. In a lot of cases you've got to actually prepare the soil, and in most cases the soil can take quite a few years to get into a good enough condition to actually be able to grow. And one of the really good parts about or things about broad beans is that it's one of those plants that even if you don't like broad beans, you can kind of grow them in the off season to other things, or and basically grow it as a living mulch, or it will provide mulch for the following season. It also adds nutrients into the soil in a form of nitrogen. So for your next crop, so when you want to grow tomatoes and stuff like that, that's what that's how you kind of do it to prepare your soil. And over a few years, your soil gets better and better. So these are basically spare seeds from last year. And I've already used quite a few to plant broad beans this season. And here's, I'm actually out the front yard, and so as you can see, I don't have much in the way of flowers. I pretty much use it to practice growing veggies, in case, obviously I use these veggies, but over time, when I really have to, I've got the skills and the soil prepared. It's all about, I think a really important part of prepping is to get into your garden and start planting things out, and just getting the experience of planting stuff, preparing your beds, and seeing how things grow. And even better, if you can save the seeds and replant them next year. That's the whole idea of prepping for your garden. Not just having a bunch of packets of seeds in your pantry and waiting for the time when you're going to need it. So here, as you can see, here we're in spring at the moment. So these broad beans are coming to the end. To the point where we're starting to harvest the broad beans. And so so there's a broad bean. Now not everyone really likes broad beans, and I'm not a big fan of broad beans myself, but they're actually quite good even just raw. Just popping it out, and you can kind of peel the tough skin and get to the soft broad bean inside. And they're quite tasty and very nutritious just as they are, just raw. Quite nice. Broad beans is just one of those things that even if you don't really like to eat them that much, they're really good for your soil, because they don't take up much nitrogen, and they produce nitrogen, little nitrogen balls on the roots. So what I do at the end, when I'm going to finish these off and plant my spring vegetables, I'll cut off all these tops, all the stems, and I'll leave the root system in there to break down and feed the next row of plants. And that's just how it goes. So broad beans I think are a really great cover crop, great living mulch. and I'll provide mulch. When I break these off, these stems, I'll throw them back on the ground, and they'll break down into the soil and feed the soil. And that's basically the whole trick to gardening, is a good garden crop, or a good soil bed, is to keep feeding your soil with good stuff, you know. And so anyway, so that's all I want to really talk about today, is just broad beans, and try and grow the broad beans, and just learn about how they grow. And they're about the simplest things you can grow. You know, I've got in my front yard here, I've got, like, here's an apple tree that's just coming to flower, and underneath I got broad beans going. So I scatter broad beans pretty much everywhere. You know, like here there's some parsley growing under a tamarillo tree. Tamarillo's another thing I'll probably talk about one day when I got some bigger plants. But these are really good because you can just take cuttings and spread out your tamarillo trees. They're like a tree tomato. Yeah, and obviously the chickens I let rummage around through the garden to you know, to keep turning the soil over. They provide manure and nutrients for the soil. And so as you can see, there's broad beans plants pretty much everywhere, and they've got about a few more weeks. I'll start picking these big ones now, and you know, they're okay in like casseroles and stuff, and or you can make a nice hearty broad bean soup. You can pick the younger ones and just eat them raw. And yeah, and so that's it. And then what I'll do is I'll off each stem, usually there's about say 8 or 10 broad beans grow off each stem, so I'll leave one broad bean on each stem and let that dry up and go to seed. And then when I cut it all back, I'll pick those seed broad beans and store them for the next year. And but even if you miss a year, they can last 2 or 3 years, no problem, just in a cool environment. But yeah, so broad beans are the first thing that I wanted to talk about in prepping for the garden, because they give you a lot of, you know, they give you the food. They even the broad bean seeds, once they're dried, there's things that you can do with them too. You can grind them down and use the broad bean powder in foods or whatever. But it's also mostly about feeding the garden back for the next season crop. And yeah, there's that's my persimmon tree. It's just started to flower, so it's going to give me some nice persimmons in the next few months. And yeah, so basically what I'm doing, this is just, like I said, my front yard, and I try and you know, I'll have a few flowering plants, but mostly they're food producing plants. The peaches aren't really doing that good this year, but you know, when I really, you know, if I had to rely on the peaches, then I will actually, you know, I'll treat the branches before they go into bud, and so it doesn't get this leaf curl. You just use some copper sulfate, but because I didn't use any this year, they've really gotten hit. And things like herbs, obviously, that's lemon balm, but I like a lot of herbs. So yeah, over here, this is French sorrel. It's like a salad green. French sorrel is quite a sour tasting leaf, and as you can see, the chooks love it. I've had to fence it off because they'd eat the whole lot in one go. So yeah, French sorrel, any lettuce green or salad green that is sour is, you know, very good for you. So it's just something different to complement your regular lettuces and stuff. Obviously I've got comfrey growing pretty much everywhere. You know, there's even a aloe vera plant there. You know, so yeah, it's basically what I was trying to say is This is out in the nature strip, so I even plant out mostly, native plants and stuff. But I've put up, here's a big this is a olive tree I use to pickle my own olives. You might see on my channel, you'll see that picture of olives in the jar. Well, that's where they came from. Comfrey again, I use comfrey a lot because it's well, look them up and read about it, but you can cut up comfrey a few times a year through the season and throw it on other things, especially tomatoes. They love it. But yeah, it's in this one it's just broad beans, and as you can see, in amongst the broad beans here's parsley, and this parsley's now the second year, so it's going to seed. So I let it go to seed and I collect the seeds for a new crop of parsley. I just throw parsley everywhere. But that's it, guys. So so prepping is not just in your pantry. It's not just your first aid kit and life-saving stuff and prepping your vehicle. It's also about prepping your garden for when you really need it. And the best thing, the best way to learn how to grow your own food is to actually grow it. And books aren't really going to help you when you're really in need of growing your own vegetables, because that all takes time. Your first crop, your first season, and that's a whole year, will most likely go to waste because you're not going to really produce much. Aside from growing, like broad beans, very easy to grow. They'll grow even if you just let them go. Same as pumpkins. They only need a little bit of water, and pumpkins are one of the easiest things to grow. But really, if you want to start growing, good stuff like tomatoes and lettuce is needs good soil for it to grow. So I just hopefully in time I'll show you more videos about prepping the garden and what you can do, and that's it. So keep prepping, and I'll catch you next time.